Friends, welcome into another edition of the Soccer Tejas Podcast. I'm Alex Parra as we begin the month of October 2025. Our first one of October, spooky month. Halloween is right around the corner. A lot to talk about locally, meaning Houston, the state of Tejas, World Cup, and beyond. Joining me, and you see them now, they're not spooky. I'll ask them if they like to dress up, by the way. Yeah. I've been scared already, Victor. First of all, let's start with Don Victor Araiza. Victor, I like your look. The glasses make you scholarly, but you look so much younger without them. Victor Araiza, good day, good morning. How are you?
Good day, good morning, good night, wherever you may be listening to this podcast.
Or watching. People watch us.
Yeah.
Not many.
Or listen.
Or listen. True. Victor, do you like the month of October? How are you?
I do. I do like the month of October. Not so much because of the pumpkins, just because it's a pleasant month, fall, all that kind of good stuff. And obviously playoffs, which we may not have here in Houston, but at least we'll get to have them. And we'll get to follow them in some form or fashion.
We'll talk about that. Speaking of fashion, she's always fashionable. She's always showing us what she's wearing. Let's welcome in the one and only Laura Gomez. Laura, good morning, good day, buen día, buenas tardes, buenas noches. How are you?
You know, I wish I was saying I was thriving, but I'm surviving. You know, it's another day in the U.S.
Speaking of, we'll get to that. I promise you. Talk to us about your shirt today. You're always wearing either a jersey or a message. What's the message here, Laura?
This one is it was a campaign that started in 2024 by, I want to say her last name is Reyes, and it's basically advocating more for more women's Black, Latinx, LGBTQ+, Asian, and Indigenous voices in sports. Unfortunately, we lack a lot of representation and diversity in that. So hopefully, you know, even with everything that's going on now in the ambient that we're living, people still find that strength to really find a place to make their voices be heard, whether it's in sports or in other areas.
I like it. I'm not wearing that kind of T-shirt today, but I am an advocate of more diversity. Let's put it that way, right? You know, we talk about our current environment when it comes to politics, and we were talking before we started this podcast about the World Cup and FIFA and the politics involved. Laura, I'll start with you. Do you think that's now a theme that affects our sports world? Remember, there used to be the separation. And I vividly remember athletes who would not comment on political issues, meaning I'm not going to tell you who I vote for. I ran for 15 yards, I scored 3 touchdowns. That's what I want to talk about. This has become sports, and the industry of sports have become a lot more political, like most things. What happened this week when they announced Bad Bunny for the NFL halftime show? Pros and cons, right? Agreements and disagreements. Let's dig down to our sport. Laura, do you think politics are going to have a hand in what happens with the World Cup in North America next summer?
I do. And like you mentioned, you know, even with, like we mentioned in journalism, there was always kind of like, at least when I went to college, there was always that
a long time ago.
A long time ago. A separation of, you know, that you have to be neutral in order to be able to cover the news. But you know, quickly on, I learned that unfortunately,
not anymore,
apparently. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Unfortunately, a lot of things people might take it that you're taking a side when you're just simply telling the news how it is, whether you want to hear it or not. You know, it's like saying there's unjust, ICE raids. It's not. I'm not making things up. I'm not taking a side in the article. I'm saying what actually happened, and people want to take it. Journalists are taking a side. I'm taking a side, but a lot of the journalists are just saying things that are actually happening. So it's unfortunate because people there's no line anymore, because one thing is saying, I have a political opinion, and another one is one that crosses a line and goes into what involves like morality in people's lives. So it's a thin line, and it's being crossed because there's things that are happening in the U.S. that shouldn't be happening.
So let me push a little bit. Do you think this will affect the World Cup? And President Trump has talked about, and I don't know if it's real or serious or not, or a real threat of moving the World Cup to cities that maybe would be better suited for his political positions? Meaning politics plays into most things that we do, especially if there's government funding involved. You mentioned ICE, Laura, and we've discussed this. Will this in a way affect attendance to games played in the United States because people might be afraid, or the process of getting a visa might be more difficult? That's what I'm going toward. This may be on the world stage an opportunity for politicians to make a stand.
I think that it's a very complex
It is.
answer, and there's different layers. So I'm going to tell you what comes on, the top of my head without going into a lot. I do think it's going to affect it because there are a lot of people that are with a lot of fear, even if they have papers.
Sure.
There's a lot of people that have a lot of fear just because of the way they look, the way that we look. We're the ones being docked. Unfortunately, immigrants that look whiter or more Europeans are not the ones being stopped. It's people that look like me. It's people that look like you. It's people that look like Victor. So we are already seeing a lot of effects. Let's say like in the Dodgers, they were saying that ICE had been there, and the Dodgers said they couldn't go into a vicinity of where the stadium was. We've seen it in a lot of teams when the MLS saying that, we don't support ICE and they shouldn't be here. So there's been different movements throughout sports. And one thing is, for you guys that are listening to us, and I hope that you guys know that Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. It's a U.S. territory. Unfortunately, it does not have the rights that other states have, but it is a part of the United States. The Puerto Ricans, if you're living in the island, they cannot vote. But if they live off the island, they can vote. They are U.S. citizens, but they cannot vote. So for the people that were commenting and saying, well, we want an American, guess what? Bad Bunny is an American. So that, he's one of the Americans that he's going to do the halftime show. So I think it's been interesting to read a lot of the comments. So I do think
Sure.
that there is people that have the lack of education maybe on the topic of, who Bad Bunny is and where he's from and things like that. I love it. Why do I love it? Because it's kind of like a little bit of resistance and the NFL that has been very white in the sort of sense, most of the owners are white, even though the players aren't. So I think it's an interesting move of the person that's in charge of doing the halftime, which I've heard is Jay-Z. So I'm all for it. I think it's wonderful. And I think it comes in a moment that, Latinos are under attack.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say something controversial in a moment, but Victor, your take on the politics of sports, and in particular, maybe the politics of the World Cup coming to North America next year.
Well, soccer's always going to have politics because that's what FIFA's always been. So let's start there, first of all. But yeah, it sort of gets mixed in now into, again, look where the last two World Cups were. Qatar in 2022 and Russia in 2018. And those were controversial decisions in how those got awarded. Saudi Arabia is going to get the World Cup in 2030, if I'm not mistaken. So, and of course, there's still the continuing expansion of the World Cup. There's talk about, I think 64 teams now. We're already going to go to 48 in this next edition. But obviously, this adds another layer. I don't think it's going to change much because I do agree here with my tocayo, with Victor Monteaglani, the president of CONCACAF and vice president of FIFA, which recently at a conference in London, and I'm getting this quote from Front Office Sports, said it's FIFA's tournament, FIFA's jurisdiction. FIFA makes those decisions. With all due respect to current world leaders, football is bigger than them, and football will survive their regime. And I think, FIFA is kind of its own thing, and it is kind of take it or leave it. And I think in this case, the U.S. will probably be a little bit at the mercy of FIFA in those sort of decisions. I don't think it's going to be as willy-nilly as saying, "Hey, listen,
Right.
we don't want the World Cup in California. We're moving it." So I don't think it'll influence a lot.
Interesting. And look, you used the word regime, or you quoted the word regime. I think every country that hosts finds its political, social, and cultural advantage, depending on the administration that's in power at the time, right? Whether elected or otherwise, they want to make a show, a positive show. And we find out later of all the stories of the workers that were used in Qatar, for instance, to build the stadiums and the conditions under which they lived in. Every country has its story, and I think it depends. Laura, you mentioned journalism being objective when we're trying to tell these stories versus it being, and I'm going to use the word propaganda or not. So it is a world full of politics that's become a lot more obvious and out there because of maybe of social media, maybe even of shows like ours, that we're able to express and have a voice that reaches people, whereas in the past it was very controlled, state-run media. So we can make the argument about that as well. Let me go back quickly, and then we'll move on to soccer, I promise, friends. The whole halftime of the NFL, this is me being completely out of touch. I understand it. I can't name one Bad Bunny song. And my first reaction was, it's irrelevant to me whether all his songs are in Spanish or in French or in English. I just don't connect with that. My generation doesn't connect. And now I'm going to be a little mean, but just to make a point. Hey, I just want someone talented. I don't get what this guy does, but that's me.
You're
That's
aging
it.
yourself.
Yeah, I'm
You're
You could
very
sell
dating
some
myself.
albums, Alex. You could sell some.
And I know someone's going to
Get the
send me the
streams.
nasty note, but that's what I see. Hey, I like Prince and Michael Jackson, and
Well, they're
back
not
in the
here
day.
anymore.
They're not here anymore.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
ages me a
So-
lot. But I don't think it's a Latino versus not in this case, Laura. I think it's a talent or reaching as many people as possible. I'm not calling him, I'm joking. Of course, this is a talented individual
Those are fighting words for Laura.
No. I'll let Alex finish and then I'll.
who's sold in his artistry is something I can't understand. But I'm a very ignorant, limited person. But I think it should be someone, Laura, that reaches and pulls people together. You know, a Paul McCartney type. Do you know who Paul McCartney is, by the way, friends? Yeah, a former Beatle. So maybe it's someone that gaps and brings generations
So
together.
not American, you said?
No, I didn't. Well, yeah, you're right. He's in this case, Paul McCartney is not an American. Laura, I'll give you the last word on the halftime
It's so
shows.
funny. It's so funny Victor says that because a lot of the people that have done the halftime shows, like Rihanna, I mean, we had like Canadians. I'm like, they're not Americans. I'm like, the first American in a while is gonna perform in your, Anyways, no, but with Bad Bunny, I can't say that I know all his songs. I can't say that I'm
Just
a
most of them.
follower. No. I'm being serious. Like, no, I can't name, all the songs or stuff like that. And, and reggaeton has evolved. I grew up with reggaeton, but I grew up with like an older generation of reggaeton. And obviously, I
Would
don't
you
agree
call
with
it
what they always.
evolved?
I mean, I don't know.
We're piling on, Victor. We're piling on
With
Good
all
Bunny.
the things that they say about women, or derogatory things that they mention in a lot of the songs. But one of the things I will say
Right.
of Bad Bunny is that he has been very. I mean, if you get a chance, Alex, I would say listen to some of his songs and the albums that he talks about Puerto Rico and how the lands of Puerto Rico
Sure.
were stolen and have been stolen. Because a lot of Americans go out in the islands and want to give $2, and they're trying to, make the beaches private. And now Puerto Ricans are going through what Jamaica and what Hawaii have gone through, with the natives not even being able to afford to live in their own land.
Sure.
So he does talk a lot about that. He mentions the apagón, which means that even if it's a U.S. territory, that the system of the electricity in Puerto Rico is very unstable, even till now. Because I know people in Puerto Rico, and people that have money and have family here, they get generators. But if you don't have a generator and you're not in San Juan, where all the hotel area is, like there's apagones, which means that there's lights out for indefinite moments of time.
Sure.
And it's sad because the U.S. is a country that likes to boast money and say there's a lot of freedoms, but it's not taking care of its people. I mean, the president just gave how many millions to Argentina, but they're saying that we can't have health care. So that's things that Bad Bunny does talk about. In the beginning of his career, it was a little different. I don't know what happened in his life or what transition or what light he got, but he has been very outspoken about defending Puerto Rico and the land and the land of the people, and how they're not Puerto Ricans, but they're not Americans. So, what are they? So I do give kudos to that, because he's using his lyrics and his fame to really talk about problems that the island is having.
Look, the platform and the conversation may be very, very positive at the end of the day, regardless of whether you're an old man like me and don't connect with the music. And yes, I'll give it a solid listen, Laura, because I think at least it's deserving of that, of course. But if nothing else, this conversation across different generations and also different cultures, I think is important. I was reading that Danica Patrick, the former race car driver, basically this is attributed to her, and I can't quote the publication. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. That she said that no, Bad Bunny should not be the halftime entertainment. And help me out, Victor, if you can find it, because none of the songs are in English. That's her position. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, but you see her perspective, her point of view, Laura.
Well, my point of view is like when she started to race, there were people that saying there's no space for you. You're a woman. What are you doing here?
Agreed.
So it's crazy to me that she's talking about you shouldn't be in the space. Just because the space isn't there doesn't mean that the space isn't deserving.
Agreed.
So to me, it's ridiculous that a woman that knew that kind of space wasn't made for women and made her space there turns around and says ignorant things like this. For me, I don't know, but to each their own. Yeah.
That's why at least we're able to express ourselves. So let's start talking a little soccer, maybe less Bad Bunny for now, and maybe less of any kind of social. But again, politics and social are all part of it. Why don't we kick it off literally with the U.S. Open Cup final, which was just played in the past couple of days. It was Austin hosting Nashville at Q2 in Austin. And Victor, this was a match that was going to give one of these two teams their first ever major trophy, and it really was. It was an entertaining game. Matthew McConaughey was there. Good coverage, good match back and forth. What did you think of the match and of the eventual victor, which was? See, I did that intentionally. Victor, which was Nashville.
Yeah, battle of the music cities, and this is two. I don't know if this necessarily has turned into a rivalry, but both of these teams kind of came around the league around the same time, so they have similar, ways of how they came into Major League Soccer. Again, similar sort of stadium out, between what Geodis Park is to what Q2 Stadium is. The fan bases are kind of, again, they've grown them in the same way. But the difference here being, one, this guy right here, Hani Mukhtar, MVP a couple of years ago. And that was, I remember that because that was also when Austin had an MVP candidate, Sebastian Drusi, who's no longer in Austin. I was thinking about that watching the game last night, how much more that would have added to that if it had been a Drusi Mukhtar thing all over again, because we didn't really get to see much of that in that other campaign. But if we just looked at it on paper, of what the results are during the league, with a guy like Sam Surridge among the top scorers, Nashville seemed like it was the better team, but Austin was at home. Not nearly as full as I thought it would be, but I think it was still a raucous atmosphere. Here was one of the pivotal moments of the match.
A penalty kick missed,
one of the big transfers for Austin, I think around reported $12 million. You can't miss a penalty in this type of environment. A final at home, you got to make that. And I know we're going to talk about here a little bit of, was it a penalty, the second one that came around and Nashville buried theirs. But to me, I thought Austin would take this because of the home environment, because of this opportunity, and that would help them push a little bit over Nashville and their quality. But I think they, again, they lived up to it a little bit here, as we'll see Usuni eventually redeem himself and tie it. But I think left some to be desired. I didn't like Nico Esteves, the coach, his comments after the match, where he talked about that, referee call. Coaches are judged by, can they get you the finals? What they do at a final, if they can even win it for you. I think this was a big moment for Nico Esteves as a head coach, and to kind of just hide under that excuse. That doesn't bode well for Austin. But, in the end, what is it going to be? I think it's probably going to be a hurtful result for the time being, because it was such a big opportunity for how this club has sort of, they can boast about all their consecutive sellouts, But the truth is, people have stopped going to their games. They may be selling out,
True.
on the balance sheet, but they've lost some interest. They're the only professional team in Austin. Sure, they're competing against the Longhorns, and that's a big um,
Huge hill to
competitor.
climb. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and a big shadow to be in. But they do have a piece of the market, maybe for those that aren't into the University of Texas or have no ties to the University of Texas. But 5 years in, they had McConaughey in the house. They had Mauricio Pochettino in the house. This was a big opportunity to come away with the trophy, sort of reinvigorate that market. And if you're a Dynamo or Dallas fan, you're probably laughing at this. But if you're an Austin fan, I think that's kind of the what you have to be thinking about, and what a missed opportunity it was.
Laura, your take on the opportunity. And by the way, this is the penalty, the spot kick that wins the match for Nashville.
And some people might call it soft, by the way. I mean, but Pereira gets the jersey a little bit. I mean, that was a stupid way to give a penalty. And he's one of, again, their figures. They drafted this kid. He's become an image in Austin,
Yeah.
but left a lot to be desired in this game.
Yeah, Laura, the first thing for you would be the center and the two ARs women, which was huge. I'm very proud of that and happy that women are running the match now with the controversial penalty there. I don't think anyone, I haven't read or seen or heard anyone saying, yeah, it's because it's a female ref. That's an advance in general, and I'm loving when I see more and more females reffing at the first division level, like at this U.S. Open Cup, and certainly in MLS in general.
Yeah, I mean, like what Victor said, it's unfortunate the kind of, I guess, quotes that the Austin coach gave out at the end to kind of, tarnish a little, kind of like an excuse to it. And I'm so happy, like what you mentioned, Alice, about having these women being in this sport and in this game. I want to get to the point that it doesn't matter. Like,
Sure,
yeah,
exactly.
the ref, just whatever, whatever it is.
It's a ref. Yeah.
It's a ref. I want to get to that point, and I know we're not there yet. But I love seeing it more and more, and especially knowing that this was an important game. And now, based on the game, I agree with what Victor said and what you said. I think honestly it was a huge missed opportunity for Austin. Again, to kind of revamp those fans that have been following the team for a while now. And as we know, Austin has grown a lot. So there's a lot of new people that are, new to the area. They're not Texans. They just came from other parts of, a lot of Californians are there and stuff like that. So they don't have that tie with the Longhorns. So, I think that this is a moment to really get those people more interested in going to go see, the only professional team in Austin as of right now. I do think that it was a nice hype, but I do think that there was a lot of missed opportunities, and at the end of the day, it came back and bit them. So it's sad that of the result that happened. I expected more on paper.
Some former Dynamos on that Nashville team. Joe Willis, who won an Open Cup here in Houston. Tate Schmidt, who was on the team a couple years ago, and Xavier Valdez, who was just on the team, and then they let him go, and he goes and joined Nashville, and now he's got an Open Cup trophy. It's funny because he was sort of in that Dynamo 2 system, never really got a shot with the first team. And then, especially this year when they had they were rotating goalkeepers there because of injury at the beginning of the year, you would have think that's when he really got in a shot, but it just didn't work out here.
Victor Lauda, before we leave the U.S. Open Cup and the Nashville victory over Austin, I love this tournament. And again, in one of our previous podcasts, I mentioned how this is done, for instance, in the FA Cup in the UK, in England, and the teams that are able to compete. I see this tournament, and I was trying to look through the data. I think it wasn't until the round of 16 that MLS Cups were able to participate. But prior to that, we had a lot of USL teams, some amateur level teams that came through amateur leagues. I think someone needs to rebrand this and make it bigger, because this, to me, and mark my words, is going to be the platform for competition between the USL and the MLS. That is a topic that's coming up in our country, that soon there will be two first divisions, like there will be the NWSL and the I forget the name of the new USL Championship League.
The Super League.
Super League. Thank you. On the women's side.
Yeah, I don't.
Victor,
You really think that? I don't think that.
I
Not
do.
for the men.
No, I do. I think this is only going to grow that competitiveness.
Yeah,
now,
but why would MLS allow another league to have Division One status?
Oh, that's already been said, Victor. Meaning, of course, but you used the word allow. The USL.
It's not that they're going to allow
The
it.
USL, you're right. The USL has already been granted that, if I'm not mistaken. Someone can correct me. Where I'm going with it, Victor, is that this is the only showcase that maybe the MLS will continue to participate. I don't see this as more opportunity. I see USL MLS even at the second and third and fourth levels as more competition for the almighty dollar rather than for opportunity. But right now in this country, and someone's going to correct me, having a second or third or fourth division team is not a moneymaker. Even having a first division team, some of us in Houston live this, is not a moneymaker. But I like the U.S. Open Cup, Victor, because it should still be pure about competition. If you're the best in your league, regardless, you have an opportunity here to get all the way to the World Club Championship, theoretically. So my point, and you're a lot more knowledgeable about U.S. soccer, Victor, than I am, the structure. But if U.S. soccer can continue 110th edition, someone help me with that as well, of this final that was just played. Think of the history, and now pitting USL against MLS teams. I see energy there, but the MLS doesn't want that, in my opinion, Victor and Laura. We mentioned allowing or letting someone else come into their territory, because the USL's model right now is promotion and relegation. That doesn't work for the MLS, a single owner entity. All the owners chip in, and you're not going to lose. Even if you're last place, you're not getting relegated. And actually, that's good for business. If I were in that business, I never want to be relegated whether I win or lose. The USL's approaching it differently. So a lot there. Any thoughts, guys? And I threw a bunch of stuff at you. Maybe not fully correct, but at least my thoughts on it. Silence.
I mean, I'll say
Ladies
that
first.
I like the relegation. We already started talking, Victor. Look, I like the relegation system. I mean, I've seen it, work in a sort of sense in Colombia too. I mean, there's always like they call it la B, which is the B. So there's like the A and the B.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of powerhouse teams in Colombia, like America de Cali, going to the B for a couple
A
years
season
and
or
then
two,
make it
yeah.
to the A and the struggles and. So I think that also motivates teams to actually want to keep winning and not just say, well, we can lose this whole season and nothing's going to happen to us. Or like, and I don't know if the USL is going to do the same thing as in Colombia, that it does matter if the fans go. It does matter if the fans are happy. It does matter if the fans are on strike. Like it does put it lights a fire under their butts, honestly, to want to get better players or actually listen to the fans and say, well, like if they're mad, they're not going to come to the stadium and we're not going to sell food. We're not going to sell beer. We're not going to sell merchandise, yada, yada, yada. So, and to me, it's kind of like that checks and balances that can help
good term.
a
It's a
team
good term.
honestly be successful, not only economically, but also in the championship wise.
Yeah. Victor, your take on at least the validity and the potential growth and future of the U.S. Open Cup.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast. If not, I'll reiterate it anyways. I think it is a forgotten tournament by U.S. soccer. I think this final should be on a weekend. They should tie it into the National Soccer Hall of Fame weekend if they were to do it on a neutral site, center of the country, like up in Frisco with the National Soccer Hall of Fame. Doing it on a weekend, for example, allows the Nashville fans to be able to travel and have this be more of a spectacle. I like that in recent years it's been able to become more of a spectacle, especially the final. I remember the Open Cup finals when there were, you were glad if there were more than 5,000 fans in the stadium, right?
Yeah.
Because at sometimes you would get some of these finals and they were all, middle of the week. But I mean, it was depressing to see, again, such a tournament not have that importance that, you would get in other countries. I mean, even if it's a middle of the week tournament in Europe or wherever else in the world, the final would still be the big game near the end of the year in a big spectacle. And I think that's what I wish U.S. soccer, because this is a U.S. soccer tournament,
Correct.
that they would do more with this, that they would, because I get it's a different deal in the United States. The travel is a bigger hurdle for smaller teams, especially. I wish there would be a format where if it's single leg, then the team in the lower division gets to host. And that would at least be an attraction, right? An MLS team comes to your town. But we don't see these changes. It's a wacky system as far as getting the hosting rights. I mean, Austin got it because they won a draw. To me, these are the things that they can easily be changed by the people in charge. It's a forgotten tournament. MLS now gives its teams, more elite teams, the luxury to not even participate because they don't want them. They don't want this thing to overshadow the Leagues Cup,
Of course.
or the Champions Cup. So I wish we could change it. That's why I like the environment we saw in Austin. If it was in Nashville, I think we would have seen a good crowd too. But listen, we had the U.S. Open Cup final here in Houston in 2018. Half the stadium was there, and that's
Empty.
when Chris Kennedy, the president of the World Cup bid, was trying to supposedly, or at least not just him, some of the leaders around town was trying to rally this thing and saying, hey, we got to sell this thing out so we can show FIFA that we deserve the World Cup. It's a good thing FIFA didn't base it on that, because we wouldn't have gotten the World Cup.
Yeah. Look, I like the scenario of a messy Miami having to travel to Tulsa, Oklahoma to take on, I think it's Tulsa FC, one of the USL teams, and playing in front of 8,000 people. There's something pure about, you know what? May the best team win, and not stacked in one way or another. Or
and sharing the wealth.
The wealth.
Help out the little guy.
Of the sport, agree 100%. Or going to Topeka, Kansas, and playing a third division team. This is done in the FA Cup. This is done in Europe. And there's something about that unique moment to have a huge superstar. Hey, yeah, they're showing up for the U.S. Open Cup, which still means something. So I'm a little sad on the Tejas side because Austin had a missed opportunity, as we've discussed. But hopefully this can be a tournament that continues to grow. Victor, I'll give you the last word on the U.S. Open Cup.
Well, and I'm actually going to shift gears a little bit because, to your point, the Canadian Championship final last night on the same evening, Vancouver Whitecaps FC of the MLS against Vancouver FC of the Canadian Premier League. Two different leagues. These teams had never faced each other. It was the first Vancouver derby. Met through their version of the Open Cup in the final at BC Place. Two crosstown rivals. Tomas Muller, the new star in town, was part of this game. And obviously the Whitecaps were going to win it because they got the superior squad. But it was still a celebration. 4-2. Vancouver FC got 2 goals on the board. Packed BC Place. I mean, again, this is sort of what you want it to be. I still think it should have a weekend slot. But, I mean, these are like you said, the purity of the sport that hopefully only gets polished, only gets better, only gets heightened, despite, again, how soccer is going nowadays, which is more and more tournaments that mean less. When we already have some of these tournaments that mean much more, have the history, and all we got to do is preserve them and shine the light on them a little more.
So we'll see what the future holds for America's United States longest running tournament, now the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. So let's switch gears and we continue talking, excuse me, Victor and Laura, about Nashville. Nashville, why? Because Nashville were the last team that the Houston Dynamo faced. Victor, this was another opportunity. Now, looking back a little bit, because this match took place before the U.S. Open Cup final, Nashville versus Austin, but now it's 2 teams from Texas in a row that Nashville has beaten. And this was really a game, from my perspective. Of course, an early red card led to having only 10 men for Ben Olsen's team, but that certainly was an issue here. A very early goal, something that now has become chronic, if you will, with the Houston Dynamo, giving up opportunities, and certainly finishes like this early on. This changes a game right away, especially when you're playing away.
Well, because it was a star where Nashville were just, trying to put the ball in the Dynamo's half and pressure the team. That's what they did here in the first couple minutes. Um, what's look, nobody's denying Nashville's a good team, right? And they're obviously they needed this result to get it, or at least confirm their place in the playoffs. Not that they weren't going to make it in anyways had they, lost this result.
Yeah.
But again, Nashville at home, a different story. For this reason, for these remaining games, that's why for me it was tough to see Houston trying to get result in against these type of teams and eventually making it to the playoffs. Um, what was more astounding to me is the way the Dynamo, and again, this was the early minutes. It wasn't like the team was gassed already. The fact that you can't find your way out of these situations, the fact that your players can't protect the ball, hold up the ball, find a way to exit these type of situations, and instead give in to the pressure. I mean, look at it. I mean, I know they got they got sort of good attendance, but this isn't even the best of Nashville attendance. You got some empty seats in there. For all these, environments that we see in MLS, this isn't like any environments we see in Latin America or some other
No.
European countries where some of these players are from or come from playing in. Relatively, these should be easier environments, and how you're pressured, how you can't seem to hold your composure is beyond me. Now, in this one, and this is obviously after the Sviatchenko red card, but
Yeah.
they pull one back. Junior Orso with a great
Golazo.
goal.
This is nice.
And, one of the things that the Dynamo should be doing a little bit more of throughout the season, testing the goalkeeper from outside the box. I don't think they've done enough of that, along with that. That's another area where they could have, fixed or at least bettered throughout the season. But, then it's 1-1 and then the game gets away from them. I think they have some talent. I'm not going to, say they have all the talent to be able to beat a Nashville. But again, some of these are these are supposed to be professional players at least. There's some of these situations where you expect better of them. And then if they beat you based on talent, that's different. But you should at least be able to weigh or find your way out of some of these situations. And that to me is the more troubling part. And I don't know if that's going to necessarily change, because it doesn't seem like it's a team that's going to change the way they do business. And that's doing it on the cheap, doing it with players that fit a certain budget. And, we're kind of back to where we started a couple of years ago.
Lauda, your take on the away match versus Nashville for the Dynamo. Obviously, we know it was a 3-1 final. And what's left? Because basically it's San Diego now at home, a very difficult match, and then one game away. So 6 points that are almost necessary if there's even a thought of a playoff spot here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this game, you can tell that obviously they were overpowered. And, like Victor said, not necessarily just by talent, but just by tactics and knowing like some of the basics to get yourself out of a hole that you dug yourself in a sort of sense. But, it's something that I've said throughout the whole season, that we can't ask of players more that they can give.
Sure.
We can't expect, Messi talent or Messi abilities, or, CR7 or even James Rodriguez abilities from players that we know they don't have it, or they're not being paired with the right players to make things happen. If you want to do more of a, local talent, or not even local talent with the Dynamo, but more of a, what should I say, unknown players kind of squad, if we were not going to have big names. But it's like something's not clicking within them. So it's that strategy of, getting talented players that nobody knows of, even from out of the country, isn't really working. It hasn't been working.
Laura, let me, and Victor, let me give you, and friends that are following us here on the Soccer Tejas Podcast, let me give you my take where I'm disappointed. And I don't ever profess to be a great soccer mind, but I give you the analogy of teams, and it's not just the Houston Dynamo. And it's basically, yes, based on talent, right? But some teams have learned to play a certain way, and they have nothing else to give. No gears to shift. No response. If plan A doesn't work, because that's all we know or are capable of doing, there's nothing else that these teams can do. It shocks me that a team will only change their tactic when they need to or forced to by the opponent versus imposing, you know what? My game plan is this. If it changes because I give up an early goal or I'm down by a man, how do I shift to this and have the discipline to do it? And I don't think it's about time to rehearse it. We're months into the season. I think a professional team at the first division level in any country should have gears, should have a way to deal with different scenarios and situations, unless the coach, and I'm not saying this about Coach Ben Olsen, is unable to think that way or doesn't have the material. One of the things, Victor, you and I have talked about when we're watching games at Shell Energy Stadium is how repetitive and boring this is. There are literally teams that will keep away from each other, a rondo of a warm-up that kids do for 87 minutes and then find 3 minutes to try to go forward and score. I get that's a way of playing, but I'm disillusioned with no defensive tactics. I'm disillusioned with teams, Victor, and I'll turn to you first, that don't get out of first gear. There's nothing else to do, and it dilutes what we're watching. It dilutes the product. Am I crazy or am I old again, like my reference to Bad Bunny, Victor? Maybe I'm living in a different time when I expected that.
No, look, I saw that today. Under 20 World Cup, the United States and France. That was most of the game. It was pretty boring. And they had a good crowd, I imagine, because of France. But, you know, it was kind of like they were just conservative. And, you know, granted, and, you know, they were playing for, it's a different setting, right? I can at least, because I was thinking to myself, man, I mean, I wish the U.S. would go a little more forward. Because obviously France isn't as dangerous as you would think they would be. I mean, you can see through 30 minutes of the game. I mean, they haven't done anything to you. Go forward, try something out, try to score a goal past them. Eventually, and I'm probably jumping the rundown here a little bit, but eventually the U.S. won, and it worked out, right? It paid off. But that's also a different format. That's a short tournament. You have 3 group stage games. You're trying to get to the next round, so I can understand there. You gotta, sort of suffer because at the end you're trying to at least take a point from this game to stay in first place, yada yada yada. Where in a league that's over the course of what, March to October, this team has played the same. This team has refused to be more attack oriented.
Yeah.
The last game at home, I remember, and I know the tactics might have shifted a little bit, at least visibly under Juan Guerra, who was in charge. But man, I'm thinking, for all the talk of Lawrence and Ali and being this fast-paced guy, when he's got a chance to run, because he had a chance to basically take the length of the left wing and just sort of test the speed against the defense. And the dude turns around and passes it back, and I'm just like,
yeah,
why are we teaching this?
Yeah.
I mean, and I know why they do it, because they're being conservative. They want to stay in this form, but at some point you gotta let the dogs loose, right? I mean, because this game is about scoring goals. I'm being Captain Obvious here, but I mean, I don't know why it's become such, and we'll get to the dash too in some of this, I'm sure. But it's just a philosophy some of these coaches play in MLS, and a lot of teams play like this, and it's just where we are.
Laura, your take on tactics in general, or in particular to the MLS, and I don't know if you agree or disagree with what Victor and I have said.
I mean, if you ask fans from around the world, especially soccer, strongholds, MLS is still boring. MLS is still considered boring. It's considered a slow pace. It's considered less aggressive, less, offensive, and which contributes to some, if not a lot of the games, being very slow paced and, boring to the eye sometimes. And I think the Dynamo has fallen into that category of kind of, just like you said, just kind of staying in that loop and, not trying really to find new offensive ways, and they want to be in the back all the time. And it's, you're like, okay, it's time to push forward. Like, But I think it's kind of like maybe I don't know why there's like a meeting and within the coaches and saying this is a style we're going to be more defensive, like, but I think that the Dynamo for sure falls into that category.
And I don't know if this is a fix that takes place from one season to the next. I think we still go back to everyone trying to play like Barcelona back in the 90s and tiki-taka. I believe that's still the mentality. And I've said this over and over, not only on this podcast, but when I pretend to ask or tell people that ask me about soccer, I can play tiki-taka, but if I don't have the personnel to do it, why would I do that? Play to my strengths. And one of the criticisms, Victor, that we have heard, not only from Dynamo fans, but from past Dynamo players, is that we weren't the most talented players, but we had heart and we went for it. And defensively, we played hard and we gave it 110%. We weren't worried about our statistics to be evaluated at the end of the match. How much possession did we have? How many times did we touch the ball? The technology in this case can mean nothing if you're not being efficient with the style that you have. But that's the way the world is. How long are the coaches on the iPad probably checking stats? That's 77 touches. We're losing 0-3. Yeah.
Oh,
that
my
was
thing is
78
why
touches.
the game's in front of you. The game is right here.
Exactly.
Watch it. Watch that.
Exactly. But Victor, maybe in their greater minds that may defend the use of technology ad nauseum, but I don't know if that exists. So anyway, friends, what do you think? Are we headed in maybe a change to what the sport has become? Certainly at the MLS level.
We can only hope.
We can only hope. Victor and Laura, I wanted, before we leave the Dynamo, to talk about some bad news, because we are just finding out that unfortunately Jack McGlynn had surgery in the last, I would say, 24 hours because of an injury he picked up against Nashville. This is disappointing, Victor. I was speaking to Pat Olmstead about it. Clearly, he's disappointed for the young man, not only for the team, and he's out minimum 10 to 12 weeks, so he's done for the season. So he will not be here when the team really needs someone like Jack. But I think immediately, Victor, about his possibility of catching on to the U.S. men's national team and being there for the World Cup. And it's not impossible, but we feel for Jack.
Well, he's got a realistic chance of making the World Cup team, and I think that's also part of the reason why he's having this surgery this quickly. I mean, he just from
to
what
heal.
We're told,
Yeah,
he got it in the Nashville game. Immediately got surgery. That I'm sure it's going to be a couple months for him to heal, and then that should at least put him back on the field. Hopefully, around the start of the MLS season in 2026. He can get a couple games under his belt and get back in the rhythm of getting back in that picture for the U.S. men's national team. So I think getting this surgery, getting it now, best thing for Jack McGlynn and his World Cup hopes. It also benefits the Dynamo.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest with you, they weren't going to make the playoffs anyways. I'll stand by that. If a miracle happens, we'll see. But even if they weren't going to make it deep, again, I'll stand by it regardless of what happens. I think good for McGlynn. The Dynamo also have an investment here in the player. Part of the reason why they brought him to Houston was also to flip him and try to sell him to a European team. And I think that's also a reason why I'm sure they're on board. But it is a bit of a shame because he is a good player. We've talked about how much the Dynamo need him. We saw in the highlights one of his chances later in the game. He almost has to overachieve in every game for the Dynamo. That's how good he has to be under the current situation. But certainly, I'm sure he's going to become a player that could eventually turn into that kind of contributor if he needs to.
Laura, nobody wants an injury, and again, I think Victor has given us good context here to his trajectory toward the World Cup, or looking forward to that. Better get it over with now, heal, and get back on the field as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I think that obviously I totally agree with Victor that, like what I've been saying for a while now that I didn't feel like the team was going to make it to the playoffs. And if they did, they weren't going to make it, far.
Yeah.
So I think that, if this injury unfortunately was going to happen, it's kind of good that it happened now, and, that he can have enough healing time to see if he can make it onto the U.S. national team. And I think it's important to take care of your health. And I think that, it's a, unfortunate, yes, but if this was going to happen, at least it happened now, to give him enough time to rest and not really, I don't want to say waste time, but waste energy with games that aren't really gonna help the team make it to the playoffs anyways.
From one young player to another, the Dynamo. In better news, you were talking, Victor, about USA versus France, the U20 World Cup. Brooklyn Raines, a player that made a difference today in this match. Talk to us a little bit about that positive news. Certainly, and again, Pat Onstead talking to me about Brooklyn Raines. He says that they, as an executive group, were in a meeting and they caught the last 15 minutes of the match, and we're very excited for the Houston Dynamo player.
Yeah, a good U.S. team, very well defensively, and again, kind of lasted. This was 0-0 up until like the 85th minute.
Yeah.
So that kind of tells you where, I was a little surprised. France didn't field a little bit better team, but again, maybe we're just underestimating what the U.S. has. Brooklyn has been part of this squad here for quite some time. Obviously, he had a great goal in the CONCACAF Under-20 Championship. I believe it was the semifinal, if I remember correctly. But we know he probably doesn't get as much of the spotlight, right, because of the position that he plays. Not a lot of times on the score sheet. In this situation, he did get on the score sheet, and it was a good spotlight for Brooklyn Raines. Shows you a little bit what he can do. And, the bigger question here is, are the Dynamo going to be able to find some offers, make some money off of him after this U20 championship? Because the U.S. seems to be faring well. That has to be what they're thinking, certainly with the way they operate and wanting to be a selling club. This is the opportunity right now. Brooklyn Raines is doing his part. Are the Dynamo going to be able to make a profit? Because that's what ultimately they brought him for. And if not, then obviously he's developing still into quite a young player. And if they, were to choose to keep him, at least somebody to build around. But we'll see here closely. Well, one of the goals, that's the first goal. And then the one right after, we'll see where Brooklyn got on the score sheet. Big game also for this young man here who scored the first goal, assisted Raines on the second goal. And then there you go, right there. And then
goal, yeah.
And then it's denied by the crossbar in the third goal that Zambrano gets it on the rebound.
So Laura, without a tale of two cities there, meaning short term, the Dynamo without two young players, two potential stars in the future, one repping the U.S. men's national team, the U20, and then Jack McGlynn looking for more. These are success stories, right? Whether the team, meaning the Dynamo, make the playoffs or not, can we spin it that way? Can we look at it that way? She doesn't want to talk.
You and your pink glasses, Alex. You and your.
The
yeah,
viejito glasses. I need all the help I can get.
I will say that it is good. It's good for them. It's good. It's good for the players, and it might be a saving point for the Dynamo, but it's still not enough, at least in my books, to get them out of that hole that they're in of not, connecting to the fans and doing a lot within the MLS for the city. It is some good PR points, but not enough.
Yeah.
We want to get to the point where, this is a player, and it's nothing against Brooklyn, but this is a player that was made in Houston, born in Houston, came up through the Dynamo Academy system. Again, while he's labeled a homegrown player, Brooklyn, they got him from the Barca Academy in Arizona. Again, a personal success story, a great success story. I'm not taking away from it, but I think we want to see more of these players, and we also want to see some of these locally produced players as well.
Of course. That I think is a a dream for many of us that see the potential talent that exists in the city of Houston. Let's shift gears, speaking of Houston, to the other professional soccer team. We're talking now about the Houston Dash. And as we prepare for our next broadcast, which will be tomorrow when the Dash are at home against Orlando, Laura, the Dash just met this amazing player against with her team from Washington, and Gift Monday. What a gift she is to that team, and she really put on a heck of a first half against the against the Dash in DC.
Well, Alex, this is a game that I would like to forget. So, if I didn't like Mondays before, after this, I don't know what to say. No, but in all seriousness, she is, an amazing player. She also plays for the national Nigerian team. So, if you got a chance to see in this past summer with the African Cup for Women's African Cup, you saw a lot of her talent as well, and just the way that the team has grown, and she's put these talents into an amazing team that's having an amazing season, as Washington Spirit is. It's unfortunate. Again, I think that the Dash, unfortunately, were woman handled in this game as well. They didn't really.
Can we say that? You've sanctioned us to say that. You've been woman
handled.
handled. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Why do I have to say man handled?
That's never happened to me, by the way. But yes.
I mean, I'm sure it has, Alex. I'm sure it has. Look, I think that they were overwhelmed in all the different positions. They couldn't really connect. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't find, a mistake from the team. They found no way really to make really dangerous strides towards the goal. I mean, I saw maybe one or two that had potential. They just struggled a lot defensively, offensively. It was a game that I hope that they saw it over and over to really see how the team kind of crumbled, honestly, with this kind of pressure of a team that is full packed in all the positions.
Laura, how do we go from an amazing away game against San Diego, where the Dash to me had their best game of the season from beginning to end, to this game away and the other coast, not quite to the coast, but Washington, D.C., and it's a tale of two cities. Whatever other cliche you want to use about the difference in performance, that's, to me, talks about the lack of consistency that exists with the team. I think that's a reality, as the team also looks for the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that's true. Like we mentioned in the broadcast before, sometimes we get a dash during the first half, and then we get a different dash during the second half. And that's something that has been consistent. Their inconsistency has been consistent because...
So they're consistently inconsistent?
Inconsistent. Yeah,
something like
there's
that?
Something there. Yeah, and they've struggled to really be the first ones to score, and they had been... I don't want to use the word lucky, because I don't think they were lucky, because they do have talent, have worked to be better, but they've just opened up that space to be scored on and having to have that pressure to then catch up and hopefully win. And if it finally caught up to them with a team that was playing no games in a sort of sense, and really, gave them, unfortunately, that horrible ending score. And I don't want to attribute it all to the change of Natalie Jacobs, but I feel like the team was kind of it has been unstabilized since she left. There's something with the mojo that was going so well changed it up.
Well, the first goal is a lack of communication between the goalie and her defender, which is the new girl here.
Yeah. And then Abby Smith was the one that was in charge of the goal. But I'm not saying that she's bad, because we've seen her do a great job when Jane Campbell, was out for, the coach's decision. And now it's because Jane Campbell is still injured. But, and it's just those inconsistencies in plays, and the calls to plays, and this team really overpowered them in all sort of sense. I mean, they have such an amazing team that really, I think, has really known to really communicate and do a great matchup to have the results that they've had.
Victor, looking a little ahead, and maybe if you still want to add something to the Washington match, it's a pivotal game against Orlando, back at Shell, back in Houston. My question, as we talk about two teams we've seen on the road, what Houston Dash team should we expect when Orlando visits?
Yeah, I still think when I think I said at the time, I commended the result in San Diego. I also didn't know how good San Diego is, right? They've lost at home against Gotham and they've lost at home against Orlando Pride since then. Now, those are good teams too.
They are.
But to me, it was a bit of an odd result in the sense that it was for the Dash a game where they won handedly. But how much did it have to do with the opponent? Here, you're starting to see the Dash and the gap between them and the elites in the league. The teams that actually, I'm not saying this, to be disrespectful, but the teams that are contenders in this league. The Washington Spirit have a chance to be NWSL champions. They made the final last year. Orlando Pride, who's coming into town, they're the defending champions. So that's going to be a test in that sense. Kansas City, who is the other home game remaining for the Dash, if I'm not mistaken, they're already clinched the NWSL Shield, and they're one of the contenders as well. So and it's different. It's kind of like an MLS. You got a couple of bunch there at the top. That are the elites in the league, and then you have everybody else. And I think it's a good lesson for the Dash, but it also tells you where they are in comparison. And part of that too is because again, players like a Gift Monday or a Trinity Rodman, the Dash don't have a player like that. Yeah. That's the truth. It doesn't mean they don't have good players. They don't have a star like that could change a game for you, that could be a disruptor, that could make you a contender. And that's partly the investment that I think that it's still lacking on the team. I don't know if we'll see that, but at least for this season, that's kind of what's holding them back into being, convincingly in the playoff picture.
I'm still optimistic that they can get there, and if they do, it'll be a great turnaround from last season. There's still certainly more games than the Dynamo have. Laura, your last word on where we find the Dash on the field.
It's kind of like what Victor mentioned. I mean, I want to say that after the first and second place, which right now are actually held by Kansas City Current and Washington Spirit, number 3 right now is Gotham. I think that after number 2, all those other teams are, debatable that the Dash could, win or tie. I mean, they've shown it before that they could do that. Unfortunately, I think that with teams like they lost, I want to say with Current, they lost 2-0, I think, last time that they encountered each other. And, and now they lost 4-0 with Washington, which are teams that obviously
the elite in the league.
Them. Yeah, they outperformed them. I mean, if you look at the points between right now, Current has 56 points, and then you have the Dash that has 26 points, but in between, a lot of Gotham has 34. So imagine just from 3rd to 1st place, there's a huge difference, 56 to 34 that Gotham has. So I think it's interesting to really see that the rest, like I said, I believe that after the 3rd in the position, the Dash could have a really good opportunity of winning or tying those games. But the first and second teams are beyond elite, and like what Victor said, they have those players. They only not have one, but 2 players that can go out there and really change a game within minutes. This upcoming game with Orlando has been having ups and downs, so I think it is a winnable game if the Dash really wants to make it into the playoffs. I think that this is a team that they need to secure the 3 points, because I think it's going to get harder with Current. So I think that this Orlando game is really one that it's either win or win to even give them the hope to make it to the playoffs and have some breathing space with their next upcoming game after playing with Orlando.
I feel, Victor, Laura, friends, that for Houston teams, for sure, the Dynamo and Dash this first weekend in October can set the plate for what's next. And I think if the teams do not pick up 6 points, 3 and 3 each, we can start talking about next season. I think that's realistic. These are great opportunities for both. Speaking of both teams, and let's switch gear here a little bit to maybe another part of the franchises and them being together. In the last couple of days, there was what's called Boots and Suits. Victor, a charity event where the players of both teams get together. They get to hang out in a more casual atmosphere, raising some money and showing what the organization gives back to Dynamo charities. It was a fun event at Shell Energy Stadium. Pretty much everybody from both teams there. So it's an exciting time to get together. And as fans, I think it's a great event, no?
I don't know. I wasn't invited, so I don't know what to tell you, Alan. I have no comment
Look,
at this point.
I was disappointed for the years that the team didn't have this event at the end of the season. And obviously, because of poor results, they just stopped doing them. But I think this is a good event for your season ticket holders. An end of the year celebration is what I'll call it. Obviously, they organized this at this point in the season to, I guess, if they don't make the playoffs, they at least celebrate something and they got it out of the way. I still wish it would be after the season, but I understand it's probably hard to keep players in town, and that's why they organize it now. But again, we'll see what happens with the playoff hopes of both. I'll just say I think we could start talking about next season already. I think it's hard. It's certainly harder for the Dynamo to make the playoffs.
Talk for yourself about the Dynamo.
We just mentioned it, the pride in Kansas City at home.
I know.
But let's give them a chance. I still think it might be done.
I'm trying to have a light moment about Boots and Suits, and Victor's already saying next season. Laura, whether we had an invitation or not for this event, are events like this fun? You and I.
Well, no, I don't know they're fun because I didn't go, Alex. So no, I don't know.
Fun for fans. Back in the day when I was an NBA commentator with the Houston Rockets, we did the Tux and Tennis. And there's pictures of me somewhere.
I was invited to that.
You were? Okay, there you go. We might have seen each other. And I think most teams have something, a gala. Look, this was one of the first times I was able to, in a casual setting. Of course, they stuck us first of all at the Rockets in the back table, by the way. But it was great. Oh no, I'll tell you a quick story about Tux and Tennis, and someone can get mad at me or not. One year was held at the Wortham Theater downtown, correct? So they had the whole program, and by the way, they didn't include Adrian Chavarria and myself, Spanish commentators. So we said, hey, how come we're not included? And they very quickly scrambled. We gave an introductory speech. Hold on. We gave an introductory speech before cocktail hour got started. Literally, we went from valet parking the cars to giving a speech in the entrance. We weren't valet parking the cars, but that's a joke. Literally, when nobody was in the building, we had 3 minutes to say hello and welcome. So hopefully these things are improving. I'm not bitter about it. I've gotten therapy. I'm over it. But Laura, these are fun events, right? Let's try to spin it that way, even if we weren't there.
Well, no, Alex, I can't sit here and say they're fun if I don't know what they're talking about. So no.
They're raising money for the community, Laura.
I think that the idea of it is good. It would have been better if I would have been there. I'm just saying, but I think it's a good idea. I would hope that they would invite people that actually report on them. But who am I to say anything?
Because you clearly haven't said anything here, so they're not listening.
Yeah, I mean, who cares who the little girl is? But I think they are. But all in all, seriousness, I do think that more events like these need to be done and actually include the community to actually create those kind of connections with the people in Houston and the people that love the sport.
Laura, Victor, there's nothing like a fan, a media member, having a one-on-one chat with one of the players, and beyond our roles as either covering the game, critiquing the game, or playing the game, coming together as human beings. And it's taken me some maturity, Laura, because, by the way, I think your point is well taken. There are a lot of organizations in the city that are only focused on who they think are media, and certainly, I'll say this, certainly Spanish language, and by the way, this is all in English.
But we're Spanish looking.
Exactly. We're not even considered. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to. I've lived that. That was one of my points about the Houston Rockets. Even within the organization, we were an afterthought. That has to change. And I'm 100% with you on that change and making these events more accessible. But at the end of the day, that moment you may have with someone, I think can help inspire, and I think can help an organization, Laura. Let's talk a little bit more about that. And Victor, you've mentioned this. Hector Herrera did not get out enough in the community to help the organization. This is one of those moments where this could really take it to another level, but there's some either protection or a wall there between the players and the community at times. Is that fair, Victor?
Well, and ironically, I think because I'll be honest, I didn't see as much media coverage this year, and I think the reason we saw it in the prior years is because it was one of the chances for local media to talk to Hector Herrera in the red carpet to this event.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like this event. Like I said, I complained a lot of years that they sort of just did away with it. That there was no end of the year celebration.
Never.
Yeah, because I thought that was a disrespect to fans that you wouldn't give them that type of moment at the end of the year to at least have that, convivencia. Now my English is fading.
Like a meet and greet. Like a meet and greet.
Yeah, with the players, despite if it was a tough year or not. And that has to do with the previous ownership and Gabriel Brenner, that they just kind of did away with that, or with players and coaches that wanted no part in it. And I think that was selfish. I'm glad this event is back. Sure, it's also raising money for their own foundation. That's fine, as long as it goes to good causes, right? I would like it again, like anything, to be grown, to be extended, to not just be for a select few. And maybe part of that is, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's more marketing. I don't know if it's more grassroots. I don't know what they have to do. I'd like to see more people in those stands. Open this up. Even, again, I don't know the logistics of it. If you have to, well, I mean, to what do you price the tickets to? What? But I think the more people you can invite to these type of things, the more of your local community that you can highlight with some of these awards that they hand out. Yeah. I think that's where this could really be more than just a celebration for the players and a few season ticket holders that are the most dedicated. And again, maybe a better night, just because of, for some fans, I don't know if it Wednesday night or, I don't know. I may be getting too deep in the weeds there now, but I think certainly there is some potential here. I think this year was less heard of than other years. Probably because, again, they're maybe not as big marquee players like an Hector Herrera. But
it doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter.
I would like it to see. Yeah, I would like it to be grown and to have more, like Laura said, impact with the community. I wasn't able to attend this year, but again, I think this, from what I've seen in previous years, I would like this to just grow and be even better than what it has been the previous years. And I do think it has been a little stagnant last couple of years, the last couple of versions.
I think if we get Laura Gomez there, it changes everything.
Well, I don't want to go now.
Oh, now she doesn't want to go.
They can invite me all they want. Now I'm like, when you hear me, Dynamo organization, I'm not even going to go. You know what? The good thing is that if they don't invite you, it means that you can say anything and everything that you want about the team, and you don't feel bad about it. So
you can say that regardless.
Even if
I know. Should I be positive here? Not even during Dash and Dynamo. Not even during Hispanic Heritage Month.
There you go. Oh boy, she's letting. Oh, now it's all coming out. So there you go. Let's shift gears, guys, to fun, cute stuff before we wrap up. Look at these guys, Laura. Look at these guys, Victor. They're adorable. The official World Cup mascots and the little cartoon. And we have the little guy here from Canada. And then we'll have the mascot for Mexico, and then mascot for the United States. This is adorable. This is cool. This is cute, right? There's nothing negative here. Can you give us the names, Laura, of the three little guys? Because I forgot them.
Well, I mean, that's because of your age.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even know who Bad Bunny was. But this is cute. This is cool, right?
Sure, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So the moose one is maple.
Maple,
which
like
very
the syrup.
like this are very,
There they are. Look
very
at those
forward.
guys. Oh yeah.
Sayu is the jaguar from Mexico, and
Ah,
Clutch is the bald eagle for
Clutch.
the United States.
Look at the little guys. There he is. Maples, Sayu,
Sayu.
Sayu, and Clutch. Victor, don't be grumpy. There's nothing negative here, right? This is just love and cuteness.
I was
everywhere.
expecting an eagle for Mexico, so I thought we are gonna have a brown eagle, and I thought we were gonna have the
That's
bald
what,
eagle,
honestly,
the
that's
white
what
eagle.
I just said that too. Yeah, I said
You
that
know,
too.
but apparently
Okay.
Mexico now is only Chiapas and Oaxaca and that southern region, and the rest of the country. But it's fine.
Man. So is there controversy, guys? This is the point, right?
Yes.
Is there controversy even about the
I mean, it's
mascots?
still a cool mascot. It's still a cool mascot.
I think the Mexico one is my favorite one.
Really?
It really is. Yeah, it really is.
I like Maple.
I mean, I've always.
I like Maple.
Well, you guys can read more on.
Here's my
some of
favorite
the
mascot.
reactions.
Here's my favorite mascot, by the
No,
way.
Alex, listen,
Bucky?
I'm trying to do a little actual paid advertisement for us here.
Yes.
You can go to Deportes Nation and look up the article that I wrote on more information on all three mascots and some of the controversies of it and why people liked it and why people didn't. Some people were saying that obviously the maple was very head on, like, okay, well, so everybody knows, Canada does maple. What else does it have?
Yeah.
Is it moose? So it's like people wanted more.
Yeah, there you go. It covered all the bases.
Some people loved it, for the U.S.
What
Clutch.
do
Were like,
they want him
really?
to eat poutine or what?
That is delicious. If you have not, it is delicious. I love those fries. And then for the Mexico, it's kind of like what Victor said. And then some of the things that, like the positions that the play that the mascots are, because they all have their different positions. And some of the things that they said that they love, freedom and equality and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But, I'm not going to tell you everything. Just go ahead and read the article in Deportes Nation.
They did well here, Victor. I'm for once I'm this is cute, this is light. There's no politics in there. Is there a cultural what
You
is the
haven't read
word?
the article, have you?
Misappropriation? No, I don't read deportesnation.com. Just so you know.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
Yeah,
But-
it's fine. And I think we're gonna have these mascots in town this weekend, so people get to get the early look. But it's mascots. People are gonna be more interested in the games. This is for the kids.
Or the kids at heart, okay? I think this is very cute. I watched that other show, Bluey and all those other things. So
I love the mascots. I always like when I've done like World Cup or Copa Americas or even like the Olympics, I always end up buying like if I go to them, I end up buying like a shirt or something. So
Laura, we'll
Okay.
just cut Victor out and you and I will have fun with it. So, friends, we are coming to the end, actually. They're telling us to wrap up because we've been doing this for about 3 hours or so it seems. So this is a segment we call What's on Our Mind? And let's start with you, Laura Gomez. What's on your mind as we wrap up this latest edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast?
Well, before I tell you what's on my mind, we didn't mention with the Dash that the Dash actually got a midfielder. What was it, like a day ago? They got Chloe Ricketts. She joined the Dash with a trade with Washington Spirit.
Right?
They felt so bad after scoring those goals on us that they gave us a player. But we had to pay $15,000 for interleague transfer funds in exchange. She's 18 years old. So she's gonna be with us to the end of the season, but then she's going to Boston Legacy FC. So Boston, are you
thank you?
hiring? Because
Question
they're
mark?
gonna be with
Yeah.
Olivieri. So I love Boston.
I'm hearing, yeah.
So that's one of the things that kind of changed during the week for the Dash. And then what's on my mind? The Afghan women have gone through a lot, just as women in the country controlled by the Taliban for the last couple of years. So a lot of the women that played soccer had to flee the country when they knew that this regime was gonna take over again, and they finally got approved by FIFA and recognized by FIFA to actually be able to play representing Afghanistan in what they call let me see what the exact name, like the refugee squad. So I think that's a stride forward, and kudos to FIFA for doing something right and giving these women the platform to be able to continue and play the sport that they love. So for me, I think that's amazing news to continue to support women and minority women and in oppressed countries to be able to play at the sport that so many take for granted, and for a lot of women it's a thing of life and death to play this game.
literally life and death, Laura, and I don't think we shine the light enough on places where the sport literally can be the only positive thing in your life for that day, for that week, for that year. And we're so caught up in the marketing side, certainly in this country, on so many other things. But that's the purity of the sport in many ways. It's getting me out of an awful situation, and at least for a moment, it gives me a little bit of hope. So thank you for bringing that to our minds and our eyes. Victor Araiza, what's on your mind as we wrap up the podcast?
I'll tie it into the games we have in town in Houston this weekend. And I actually kind of meant to hit on this topic a couple weeks ago. Jacqueline Ovalle, who was, unless I'm mistaken, the biggest transfer now in women's soccer, right? It was a big deal for the NWSL. She'll be in town with the Orlando Pride. I imagine that'll bring in an additional sector of the Tigres fan base, at least those who follow Tigres Femenil, because she was a big star there while she's in town this weekend. And she's been playing in the NWSL. I believe she just scored her first goal. In the first game I saw her, and I believe it was back when she played the Chicago Stars, it was, you saw a different side of the Stars. I think, it shows you the somewhat of a professional jealousy, right? I think that does exist here with this transfer, where people see, man, they just got this player for how much? 1.1 million, and I think it'll bring up the competitiveness in the league that other players want to show. Hey, I'm just as good, if not better. I've seen that, I think, in some of these games. Obviously, she's a talented player as well. She just, like I said, scored her first goal. We'll get a chance to see her in Houston. So yeah, if you got a chance to check that out or to follow the NWSL, that's a caveat this weekend. And then on Saturday, we'll have another Mexican star in Irving Chucky Lozano, who, the Dynamo have announced they have limited tickets remaining for their fan appreciation night, which is the theme of this game. But I think it has more to do with the Mexican star that's coming into town. So once again, both teams, stadium is getting filled by Mexican stars, and obviously here, courtesy of the away team. So 2 stories to follow in the coming week. And of course, we'll follow these here in Soccer Tejas, especially for the next episode.
So there you go. That's what's on Victor Araiza's mind. That's what's on Laura Gomez's mind. And friends, as we wrap up this latest podcast, there are so many different stories to be talking about. We talk about the youth side of the sport. We talk about the college side of the sport. We talk about the World Cup coming. We talk about the professional side, the USL, the different divisions. The U.S. Open Cup was just played. And to me, these are great moments for our sport. We can get down on the levels of competition, on the teams that are more or less competitive, on the money, the business of soccer, and the preparations for the World Cup that's coming up in 2026. But I see all these things, all these different topics as positive for our sport. I really wish, certainly in Houston, that we could start coming together around the sport. The Legacy Project related to the World Cup will be announced soon. Youth clubs, I think, should find a way to work together more rather than against each other. As the sport continues to grow, I'm hoping that the World Cup is a moment to look back upon and reflect as, hey, this was another huge chapter for the growth and development of the sport. Many people will be selfish about what's in it for them, but let's all try to be altruistic if we care about our sport, about what's coming in the next 8 to 12 months. The World Cup, all that's involved with the World Cup, the attention that we will receive in Houston, and then what happens afterwards. That, to me, may be even more important. But I see this, friends, as good moments for our sport where we have to find a way to come together. There's a lot more that unites us and separates us, and I hope that shines through here as we get ready for another opportunity in the United States, at least, to host the World Cup. So I'm very excited about that, and that's what's on my mind at the moment. So Victor, Laura, as we wrap up, anything else are you looking forward to, Laura? I'll start with you as we wrap up this latest edition.
I am looking forward to the game because what Victor mentioned. I really want to see OIG in action in live action. And hopefully see the Dash, you know, get those points that are much needed. And yeah, and we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited for the game, and hopefully it's a good turnout as well in the stadium.
Make us
Deportes,
believers.
yeah, Deportes Nation streaming live tomorrow, Friday the 3rd.
In español.
As we record in Espanol, we'll be there with Daniela Rodriguez, Laura Gomez, and the rest of our crew, including Don Victor Araiza. Victor, before we leave, anything that you're looking forward to beyond what you've already mentioned, of course?
Looking forward to, I don't know.
Christmas?
I mean, yes and no. No, World Cup tickets.
World Peace.
They've started to go on sale for a select few. Share your experiences with us if you've been able to get your hands on some of them, and if you're looking to sell, I may have a kidney that I may need to pawn. But
Wouldn't that be your
Victor.
second? You have to keep one around, Victor, at least.
yeah, so I'll use it to go to the World Cup. I'll use the other one to go.
They did kind of give out like I don't know if it was leaked or not, like some of the prices. So some of them are outrageous and some of them are outlandish, but you know.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think that's one of the next deep dives we're going to have. Who actually is getting the tickets because of the raffle? What are those costs? And then most of us, unfortunately, are going to have to be in the resale market. Just quickly, Victor, what do you expect in NRG Stadium in Houston, a nosebleed section to cost? $300 to $500 per ticket, easy?
Well, we've seen, I believe they're being sold in packages as well, right? So that's the other caveat to this. If you're a fan of a certain team and you want to follow your team around,
Yeah.
I think it's already been reported the cheapest tickets are $60, but we're still waiting to see. I mean, we're still waiting for the December draw to find out what are the games are going to be. So maybe some of these might be some accessible tickets. But certainly if you want to follow a team, that's kind of where people are putting their money in right now. And obviously the pre-sale has already started. I didn't get to get in, but hopefully
somebody we know will bring us along. Laura, what are you willing to spend to go watch the World Cup at NRG in Houston?
I guess when we went to the World Cup in Russia, we paid $300 and the seats were very, very decent. Like, if you wanted to pay less, like I think people like in nosebleeds paid like 50 or 60, dollars. So we were like in the middle in a good area. So it was like 300, 350, something like that per person in different games. But some of the prices that I saw actually posted today, I think it was the Athletic who posted them. Like if you want to do category 1, like if you want to watch the Mexican opener, it could cost up to $1,800. And if you want to be like category 4, it could be, $370. So that it's considered might be the cheapest one, $370 for the Mexican opener. The U.S. openers is $355. I know the Canadian is $355. I knew it was too cheap. The U.S. opener might cost $560. So it's kind of, and the most expensive one in the U.S. is expected to be $2,735. Wow. And group stages can go from $345 to $60, really depending on the category. But that's what they say, and as we know, the resellers do have they do have like the blessing of the main sellers. It's something that has come out recently that they do kind of say, okay, go ahead and resell because there's really no laws to.
Because it's on FIFA's website, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The reseller.
So we'll see. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Victor, you're right. Maybe a couple of kidneys and maybe some other body parts we'll have to sell in order to be in those stadiums. Well, how realistic is it, friends? As we wrap up the podcast, what are you willing to pay? Maybe that's a poll question. What are you willing to pay to go and live and feel the World Cup? For many of us, it may be our last opportunity, depending on how many times it may or may not return to the United States. So we've got to go bye-bye. Adios, hasta luego. On behalf of our production staff, on behalf of Victor Araiza, on behalf of Laura Gomez, I'm Alex Parra. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for following us. Please find us on social media. Send us your comments, your questions. We are here to try to grow this, and we appreciate all of you that take the time to watch and listen and follow what we call the Soccer Tejas Podcast. Until next time.